Welcome to the Caroma Temple. Who's not been here before? We had people not be... Welcome. It's lovely to have you in-house with us. Caroma is under the subsidiary of GWA. We own Dorf, Methven, Clark and Caroma. More than happy to give you tours a little bit later. We have upstairs as well, which is a fabulous space, including our boardroom, which you can see upstairs. We use the space for one of a few reasons. 5 interior designers on staff, Kurt and Matilda, are here today. They come at no cost to the end user. So if you have bathrooms that you'd like designing, if you can come in with your plans, they come at no cost to you, so they can help to facilitate the design. And then we don't sell anything in the space, so there's no pressure. We then send you back to one of our third parties, Reece, Tradelink or Bunnings, to facilitate the sale. So the space is also used for inspiration, motivation and accreditation. And obviously today is one of those accredited days. We also have this weekend, might I add, and we'd love to see you back, a Sustainability Tiny House Expo. As you'll see on your way out if you do go, there is a tiny house in the car park. There'll be a pop-up plant sale. We have bees and honey for sale. We have workshops happening, how to reduce our plastic living, how to leave a smaller footprint on the planet. Damon Gamo is coming tomorrow morning, 4 keynote speakers, including Lottie Dalziel. She has a company called Banish, which is a plastic-free and paraben-free company. We also have Damon Gamo. Damon wrote that sugar movie, but he also wrote 2040, so regeneration. Damon will be here at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning and also 11 o'clock on Sunday, talking about how do we live a better life and keep it a little bit on the green side. We have another speaker, which is Guido Verbis. Guido runs the Bower, which is a recycling unit nearby in Marrickville. And the 4th keynote speaker is our Matilda. And Matilda's an interior designer, interior architect actually, aren't you? Talking about sustainability and design. So we'd love to see you back for that. We also have to win a trip to the Hunter Valley, including 3 nights, sustainable retreat at the Vintry, and it's also got, it sleeps 8 and there's a tiny house on site. So I'd suggest you scan that code if you'd like to go. Who feels like a weekend away at the Hunter Valley? Anyone? Yes, there's free wine as well, so that might add a little spice to the deal. But however, today, we're not here for that. We're here for the CPD day. Upstairs, as I said, there's the bathrooms. You will see at any point in time a run sheet for the day. It should be on your chairs, but it's also going to be on screen. Sherilyn Robinson, can you give us a wave? She's also our point of contact today. She'll be sending you a thank you email tomorrow and give you the details as to where you need to put your CPD Q&As in order to get your credited points. So, without further ado, are you well? Are you having a good day? Have you said hello to the person next to you yet? Have you given them your PIN? Have you hugged them? COVID-free hugging. And that's why we're actually we have 77 registered today. Having said that, you know, if there's a COVID scare, everybody goes to their bunkers and bunkers down, and also traffic's very tight. So there will be people coming and going during the course of the day. However, this morning, we have a first CPD point, which is the AS 1428.1, delivered by our very own in-house Taylor Williams. Please put your hands together for Taylor Williams. Come on up.
Thank you. Yep. Thanks. All right, good morning, everyone. I'm lucky first today, so I expect you all to be very attentive. So today's CPD presentation is worth 1 formal CPD point, and it's on designing for access and mobility, so interpreting the AS 1428.1 standards, and then also identifying some of the solutions for designing in the aged care market. We do have an assessment sheet, which I'd prefer you to leave to the end. I'd prefer you all to listen in, and then we'll go through the questions and answers at the end. If you have any questions as we go along, I'm happy for you to yell them out. Otherwise, we will have a Q&A towards the end. So firstly, a bit about GWA. Caroma has our brands such as Caroma, Dorf, Clark and Methven that have been an integral role in the Australian household for over 75 years. Long before it became fashionable to think of the environment, we have been developing sustainable water and energy efficient technologies. We've pioneered an impressive list of industry firsts, including commercialising the dual flush button system, the 6 and then 3 litre dual flush system, and then down to 4.5 and 3 litres. The first, Wells 5-star rated toilet suite, which is our Profile 5 with the little integrated hand basin. And the first, Wells 6-star rated urinal, which is the Cube 0.8 litre electronic urinal. And then more recently, Smart Command. So this is an intelligent ecosystem of products that actually allows you to monitor the usage of the products. And in turn, you can cater your cleaning and maintenance schedules around the usage. We do actually have this installed in our showroom, just over on the side there. And some of the products as part of the Smart Command system, they are compliant to the AS 1428 standards. Today, our R&D team is dedicated to continuing our reputation for innovation with a focus on developing the latest water-saving technology. So some of the learning outcomes for today, we'll be recognising the different product and set-out requirements within AS 1428, interpreting the definition of sole occupancy applications and where to apply, identifying the compliance requirement of ambulant cubicles, and recognising the appropriate features to take in consideration for use in aged care space. So these are some of the items that we will be covering off today. It's important to note that the standards are quite vague and they are open to interpretation. Anywhere where you see a diagram, it's taken directly from the standards. So I like to say that there are 3 sort of different sections within the standards. So we have accessible, ambulant, and sole occupancy. We do find that sometimes people like to lean on the accessible standards when designing for aged care, but it's not always best practice. So we will be going through some of the considerations to make when designing for aged care to make it appropriate for the users. So accessible compliance refers to commercial bathrooms that meet the full design brief. Product features and spatial setouts are what drive this compliancy, and the standard was written for numerous disabilities such as dementia, amputees, and wheelchair-bound users. Sole occupancy is a requirement within the AS 1428 standard, which refers to the design of private use bathrooms in a commercial facility, so a gym, hotel, hostel, or hospital room. The design almost mimics the accessible standards with the exception of the basin and tapware. So ambulant is defined as people who have a mobility disability but are still able to walk. So they might be using crutches or a walking frame. And the design guideline in the space focuses around the toilet itself and how we transfer on and off the toilet. So first is accessible. So within an accessible bathroom, the toilet needs to project 800 millimetres plus or minus 10 mil from the rear wall. That 10 millimetres is just due to the way that vitreous china expands and contracts in manufacturing. So it's a bit difficult to get it right on that 800. So that's why there's that short tolerance. And it needs to be 460 to 480 from finished floor level. So that projection and height allows someone in a wheelchair to wheel up right next to the toilet and be at a similar height and similar distance from the back wall in comparison to the toilet to be able to do a successful sideways transfer. The backrest needs to be supplied as a separate fixture and securely fixed into position. So that allows the user to actually grab on and pull themselves across. There are some toilets on the market that consider their cistern as acting as a backrest. However, that would mean that the user would actually need to hug the cistern or grab onto the toilet seat to pull themselves across, which wouldn't be a very pleasant experience. You also need to have raised flushing control, which remains proud from the surface during complete activation. So if you had like an amputee or limited finger mobility, that allows the user to flush with their elbow or with their wrist. Also needs to have braille or a non-visual indication of full flush versus half flush. More recently, there have been flush plates on the market that are sensor activated, so they can actually sense how long the user is in the cubicle and then consequently do a half or full flush. These are compliant as well, but always check with your access consultant if they're happy to sign it off. So toilet seats. Toilet seats must be full round type with minimal contours to the surface, so none of those old horseshoe types. Securely fixed into position when in use, with seat fixings to create lateral stability. So that just stops the toilet seat from becoming skewed whilst doing a sideways transfer. Must be load rated to 150 kilograms, single flap only, because the double flap would actually interfere with the backrest. And luminance contrast. So must have a minimum luminance contrast of 30% with the background it is viewed against, e.g. pan, wall or floor. So at Caroma, we always recommend to use a coloured seat, as we see the seat as being viewed against the pan, which is generally white. However, if you have a dark wall or a dark floor, occasionally your access consultant will allow you to use a white seat. Again, always check with them because they're the ones who will be signing it off. Grab rails. So a continuous grab rail must be provided when a concealed cistern is used, and the grab rail will sit along the back wall and continue up the nearest side wall. So like the top two grab rails there. Where a low-level or non-concealed exposed cistern is used, 2 grab rails are required, one up the nearest side wall and one on the back of the wall next to the cistern. Grab rails along the nearest side wall can either be fitted as a right angle or obtuse grab rail. Right angle is better for those who have better upper body mobility, as they can then grab onto the grab rail and pull themselves up, whereas obtuse is better for those who have better lower body mobility, because they can then push themselves forward and then grab onto the grab rail. Unfortunately, in a lot of situations, you won't actually know who is using the bathroom, plus it'll be a mix of users, so it's really your preference as to whether you would like to use right angle or obtuse. All grab rails must be installed 50 to 60 millimetres off the wall and allow unobstructive movements along the entire length of the grab rail. So if someone was to run their hand along the inside of the grab rail, there's to be no obstructions there. That's why you can see we have those little dog leg fixings, so that there's going to be no obstructions. Grab rails must be securely fixed into position, not potions as it says there, and be able to withstand 1100 Newton meters or 110 kilograms weight loaded. So this just shows typical grab rail placement taken directly from the standards. The diagram on the left-hand side shows how you can either have right angle or obtuse, and then the diagram on the right-hand side just shows either where the grab rail would continue along or where the cistern would sit, just in that yellow highlighted section. So a typical room design for an accessible bathroom. The toilet will be installed 450 to 460 from the nearest side wall. There's a 1400 ml unobstruction zone from all front edges of the toilet around the room, with the exception of the basin, which has the ability to intrude within 100 ml. 2 robe hooks are to be provided and installed at the correct height. Toilet paper holder where the paper dispenses at the correct height. Shelving must be provided either as part of the vanity top or as a separate fixture. And hand dryers, soap dispensers and paper dispensers are permitted, but they must have the ability to be operated with one hand. Basins within an accessible bathroom. So they must be installed so that the top of the basin is 800 to 830 from finished floor level. We find that people like to push it to around that 830 mark because it's comfortable for those who are and are not in a wheelchair. If a shelf basin is selected and its dimensions comply to the standards, then no additional shelf space is required. Minimum required shelf space as part of a vanity top is 120 wide by 300 deep. Shrouds and bottle traps are optional, but when installed, must not interfere with the knee-toe clearance. So this just shows typical basin circulation space. On the left, you can see in the front of the basin, nothing is allowed to be installed within that area. And then on the diagram on the right, you can see that knee-toe clearance. So that allows a user in the wheelchair to be able to wheel up to the basin without their legs hitting anything in the way. And you can see you can have a shroud or bottle trap, it just can't interfere with that knee-toe clearance area. Tapware. So specified tapware can be installed as a basin mixer. So an extended lever with 50 millimetre clearance from any adjacent surface. Maximum 300 mil from the front of the basin to the operable parts so that the user in a wheelchair can actually reach that lever and turn it on. 3-piece tapware is permitted, but no star or capstan handles, with hot installed on the left and cold on the right. Water delivered via a mixing spout, and again, maximum 300 mil from the front of the basin to the operable parts. Electronic basin mixers are permitted. They just need to be cold or pre-mixed, sensor activated or swipe on, swipe off. Again, the tap just needs to be able to be activated within 300 mil from the front of the basin. Showers. So a rail shower is required where the rail is a support grab rail securely fixed into position. The shower handpiece must sit in an adjustable cradle with the shower able to be adjusted and accessed from a seated position. So that's why you usually see that slider rod on an accessible shower. Because say in an end of trip facility, you have someone using the accessible shower who might have a vision impairment. So they will use the shower at a height that is comfortable for them. The next person who goes in might be in a wheelchair, and without that slider rod, they actually have no way to adjust the height of the shower. So their only option is to turn it on and get completely soaked. The shower hose needs to have a minimum length of 1500 mil. That's to help with assisted showering so that you can get the shower hose all the way around someone who may be in a wheelchair. However, that length brings about the possibility that for some reason, someone might think that it's a good idea to get that shower and go and stick it in the toilet. So that's why you need to have that backflow prevention valve, which will intercept any of the water being sucked back up into the shower. Tapware needs to be wall mounted and installed in a specific location. Extended lever is not required. You can use an extended lever, but it's an added expense that's not necessary, and it can also be quite dangerous. If you picture an extended lever sticking out from the wall, it can very easily be knocked, and then the person showering would potentially either have a very cold or very hot shower. Grab rails need to be a T-bar grab rail or 2 separate rails installed to form a T. If you know if the shower will be left or right hand, then you can spec the T-bar grab rail. Otherwise, just spec 2 separate rails and then the builder can install it on site to either be left or right hand. Shower seats must be provided, installed in a specific location, self-draining and fold in an upward position. So this just shows a typical shower layout. As you can see, they've just got the 2 separate grab rails installed to form a T. And then we have the zone where the taps and soap holder need to be installed. You can see the shower seat there as well. So that folds in the upward position. Just in case the brackets gave way, you don't want the user to fall on the floor. Next part is sole occupancy. Sole occupancy is defined in the BCA as a room or other part of a building for occupation by one or more joint owner, lease, tenant, or other occupier, including a dwelling or a room or suite of rooms in a class 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 9C aged care building. Non-sole is a public area such as a hotel lobby that has an accessible toilet only and is mainly used for washing hands. Whereas sole occupancy is a private area such as a hotel room where the user needs to do more than just washing their hands. So they might need to brush their teeth or shave their face. So the sole occupancy bathroom pretty much mimics an accessible bathroom, with the exception of the basin and the tapware. With the basins, they need to have an increased projection and a shallower depth. So that increased projection allows someone in a wheelchair to get their chest right up close to the basin. Say if they were brushing their teeth, it can mean the difference between them spitting their toothpaste in their lap or into the basin. It also allows them to get close without their foot pedals hitting the wall first. The shallower depth allows them to get their arms into the basin and wash their face with ease. There are a few different sole occupancy basins, so you can either get a wall, semi-recessed, or even a corner wall basin. So this just shows a standard basin in comparison to sole occupancy. So as you can see, it's a bit deeper with that increased projection and then a little bit shallower as well. Usually try and look for the word sole in the heading of the basin, and then you'll know that it's suitable for this type of application. Ambulant. So, ambulant is defined in the BCA as people who have a mobility disability but are still able to walk. So they might be using a walking aid such as frames, canes, and support walkers. Whilst they do not have the added pressure of accessing the bathroom with a wheelchair, due to their limited mobility and use of their selected aid, they can often experience similar difficulty manoeuvring on and off the toilet and around the bathroom space. So a toilet in an ambulant bathroom needs to have a height from finished floor level to the top of the seat of 460 to 480. Pan projection from the rear wall is 610 to 660. Within the space, sidewall grab rails, coat hooks, and signage needs to be specified. There's a circulation space of 900 ml from the front of the pan for manoeuvring around the cubicle. And the cubicle needs to be 900 to 920 wide. Luminous contrast seats and backrests are not required. You can use a coloured seat if you like, but it is definitely not recommended to use a backrest. Backrests are designed to be used with toilets that project out 800 millimetres. So if you used a backrest with an ambulant toilet, it would actually protrude over the toilet seat and the user wouldn't be able to sit on the toilet properly. This just shows a typical ambulant cubicle layout. So as you can see, you've got the two grab rails on either side of the wall and that circulation space in front of the toilet. That's why usually in an ambulant cubicle, the door will swing outwards, or you might even have the door on the side of the cubicle. Again, you can use either obtuse or right angle grab rail, and there's a zone there where the toilet paper actually needs to dispense from. Aged care. So as mentioned, there are no real standards for designing for aged care, which is why we find that people then lean on the AS 1428 standards. In aged care, there are some rooms that need to comply to the standards, but for other rooms, there are some recommendations which the University of New South Wales have put together. So there are a few different application types for aged care. We have independent living or retirement villas, residential aged care, specialised solutions such as dementia, and high care or respite. Depending on the application, will also depend on your level of design. So from the University of New South Wales study, there were 5 overlapping phases of work. They established a co-design project reference panel of 5 to 12 older persons who did 12 meetings, and then an additional 3 meetings for the support device extension. There was a national survey of just under 4,500 responses, and from that they did 80 in-depth interviews, laboratory work around the toilet activities with 31 older people, and laboratory work around the use of support devices with 12 older people. These are some of the findings from that survey. So a high proportion of respondents had a BMI within the obesity range. So 9% of women and 3% of men appeared to be severely or very severely obese. Over half of the respondents had bathrooms with separate showers with raised perimeters, making them inaccessible to wheelchairs and a potential trip hazard. A surprisingly large number said that they rarely or never used their bathrooms to take baths, so pretty much just taking up space. Over a third indicated that they went to the toilet 2 to 3 times during the night, and this increased in correlation to medication use. A quarter rated the bathroom size as being poor, and under half mentioned insufficient space to dress and undress within the bathroom. A fifth rated the winter temperature in their bathroom as poor, and a fifth rated the quality of their bathroom floor to prevent slipping as poor. So some quite sad statistics there. However, we do have some recommendations of how you can improve the bathrooms in these spaces. So with the toilets, try and keep to the Ambulant standards with that increased height and projection off the wall. Makes it a bit easier for the user to get on and off the toilet, as well as having their carers move around the space. Aesthetically pleasing grab rails on the side wall, or even a toilet with removable armrests. You can get toilets where you can add the armrests on at a later date, just to adapt to the user's mobility at the time. Coloured seats are good as a specialised solution, particularly for dementia wards. Toilets do not need to meet the full AS 1428 standard unless stipulated. Those accessible toilets can be quite expensive, and you don't really need to use them all the time. So try and stick to an Ambulant toilet. Look for easy height in the heading. For the tapware, try and use mixers or 3-piece lever tapware with clear visual indicators. This allows ease of operation for those with limited hand mobility. They might have arthritis or RSI. Extended levers are not always required, but try and select tapware where an extended lever may be fitted on at a later date. With the basins, try and stick to wall or semi-recessed basins. Avoid deep basins in bulky cabinetry. They actually found that a lot of the users who had cabinetry underneath their basins didn't actually know what was in them because they didn't have the ability to actually bend down to use that cabinetry. So it's really just taking up space. With the showers, over 60% of bathroom incidents occur manoeuvring about the shower. So avoid tile lips, which are a major trip hazard, and provide grab rails within the shower area, even as part of the shower, or for support getting in and out of the space. In the study, they found a few respondents were really grabbing onto anything they could. So grabbing onto the basin to pull themselves off the toilet. And I think there was one lady who was even grabbing onto a shower screen to pull herself up. So even using like grab rails as a substitute for towel rails is a good option. That rail there, it is a grab rail, but you can use it as a towel rail to try and keep things aesthetically pleasing and using more robust accessories. Just remember that every individual coming into aged care is looking for a functional space without the institutional feel. That includes in the bathroom. So design something that you would be proud to send your parents to. Consider how your space could be adaptable to suit occupants of varying mobility needs. If a resident took a turn for the worst, could they remain living in this space with a few minor modifications, or would they have to change rooms or even facilities? An adaptable facility could be more appealing to clients, as rooms can be marketed to a larger group of individuals. So that relates back to using toilets where the armrest can be added on, and using tapware where you can even add on an extended lever at a later date. Insert loved ones here. So this beautiful bathroom is what has our Opal range in there, which is for assisted living. We do have a pod around the corner if anyone is interested to actually go and look at that. Thank you. Thanks. Do we have any questions on this? Nope. I've answered all the questions in the presentation, obviously. If you have any questions after, though, I will be floating around for the rest of the day, so come and find me and happy to talk through that with you. Yes?
The grab rails that Caroma produce are fairly industrial looking, but in the market there's quite a few designer products available.
Yes.
If you were designing a bathroom, you probably would choose, if you had the budget, you might choose a more refined design. I'm just wondering whether Caroma had the intent to perhaps provide a more designer type range of the grab bars, because they're very industrial looking.
Which ones of ours are you referring to?
The ones in your catalog.
Okay, so you may have been looking at our Virtue range. So that will soon be obsolete, and we have replaced that with Care Support. Again, it probably is industrial looking because it is for commercial spaces. We have incorporated germ guard seals in there for an added level of hygiene. They are the ones which cannot have any obstructions along the rail, which is why they may look a bit more institutional. However, for like assisted living or retirement living, we do have our Opal range. So they're a bit more aesthetically pleasing. The rail that I showed that can be used as like a towel rail as well, that's from our Opal range. And we will be introducing those in colour very shortly to make it look a bit less institutional.
Good question, thank you for that. Any other questions from the floor? Yep.
Hi, Taylor.
Hello.
With sensor taps, is it just the tapware that could be sensorless, or do you offer other things that are touchless?
So we do have our Smart Command range, which is AS 1428 compliant. So the tapware and the flush plates can be used in an accessible bathroom. We do have a shower panel as well, which is deemed to comply. We do have a setup of that system around the corner. So it's good because the user, all they need to do is put their hands under the tap and it turns on straight away because the sensor is in the actual spout. And then we have the flush plate as part of that system as well, which can actually sense how long the user is in the bathroom, and then consequently will do a half or full flush, or they can just wave their hand in front of the flush plate and it will flush.
Okay, great. We also will be doing some showroom tours as well at lunchtime. So if you would like to see some of the, in working order, you can actually come around and one of the designers will actually show you where they are and you can touch and feel. Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you just want to explain about the question and answers and things like that?
Sure.
What they need to do?
Yeah, so I can go through the answer sheet now for the assessment activity. If you can write your email address on there and then hand your assessment sheet back to one of our staff members, then we will send you back your CPD certificate. So you just put your email address, obviously it's got a spot for your name there, and your company name on there as well, please. So question number 1. What is the projection and height requirements for an accessible toilet? So the projection for this one is 800, and then the height is 460 to 480. So that allows the user to get right up close next to the toilet at a similar height and similar distance from the back wall. Number 2, what is the projection and height requirements for an ambulant toilet? So the projection is 610 to 660, and then the height is 460 to 480. From the front edge of the accessible basin, what is the maximum distance allowed to reach tapware operation? So that one is 300 millimetres. Number 4, name the 3 types of basin tapware that you can use in an accessible bathroom. So we have a single lever or extended lever basin mixer, 3-piece tapware, or electronic/sensor tapware. Number 5, can I use an extended lever shower mixer? The answer is yes, you can, but they are not required. They can be quite dangerous and they're an unnecessary added expense. Number 6, what is the required clearance of the lever handle from any adjacent surface? So that one is 50 millimetres. Number 7, what features must an accessible toilet have? List at least 3. I'll rattle off a few of them. So we have full round type, securely fixed into position, lateral stability buffers, single flap only, load rated to 150 kilograms, and 30% luminance contrast. And then number 8, in an ambulant facility, which of the following design elements are not taken into consideration? So this one is A, basin size. There is no such thing as an ambulant basin. So as mentioned, like the ambulant standards are more around manoeuvring around the space rather than the actual basin and tapware. Number 9, what are the 2 types of grab rail examples that can be used around an accessible toilet? So we have continuous or 2 separate grab rails. I will also accept right angle or obtuse. Number 10, what force or weight must the grab rail be able to withstand? So this is 110 kilograms or 1100 Newton meters. Number 11, the flexible hose length of a handheld shower is to be a minimum of, and this one is B, 1500 millimeters. Number 12, what are your 2 options for the provisional shelf space in an accessible bathroom? So it can either be integrated into the vanity top or the basin, or supplied as a separate fixture. And then number 13, so the main features of a sole occupancy basin compared to a standard accessible basin. These are to have an increased projection and a shallower depth. Yep, so sorry, just again, number 13, the two features of a sole occupancy basin, they need to have increased projection and a shallower depth. So just make sure you have your name, email address and company name on the assessment sheet. And then if you hand it back to one of our staff members, otherwise you are welcome, if you want to keep a copy of your assessment sheet, you can email it to me, email a copy, and then we'll send back your CPD certificate along with a copy of the presentation as well.
That's great. Thank you, Taylor.